So I worked on Bitcoin Core for many, many years, but am not here to talk about that. I now spend my time full-time at Square Crypto working on a project we call the Lightning Dev Kit. So working to enable Lightning to be more accessible to developers. And I'm here to talk about that and give the lay of the land for why it exists, what the state of the Lightning ecosystem is broadly, and why we think it's an important project and why Square is funding us to work on it. So in order to get into why Lightning Dev Kit and why better developer tooling around Lightning in the specific model that we have is important, we first have to kind of cover what exists in Lightning today. What is the state of the Lightning ecosystem? What projects can you use to interact with the Lightning network? And so everyone probably here knows LND and C Lightning, the kind of two, I would say, by far most popular Lightning routing nodes, certainly for large-scale Lightning. They're great. They run on your Raspberry Pi or on a big server. If you have a lot of channels, you probably want to do that. They have an RPC interface. They're like a fairly monolithic daemon. You know, they're like a program you run. I think C Lightning is maybe a little less monolithic, but then, of course, relies a little more on standard operating system features in Linux and other operating systems. And so it's really designed to run on a server, on something that has to be online 24/7, because that's kind of a basic requirement for Lightning. And so that's kind of how they came at Lightning from day one, right? C Lightning and LND were around basically on day one when Lightning was being invented. And they came at it and said, well, we need this thing that's going to be online 24/7, so we're just going to build it and target servers because, like, mobile is weird on Lightning and whatever. And so they built this really great thing that you run, but it is really just targeted at that specific runtime, right? So it has SQL, fairly monolithic. More recently, we have a few other Lightning implementations that have gotten a little more popular. Obviously, Electrum now has a built-in Lightning implementation. They spent many years writing from scratch a Lightning implementation to integrate with their existing on-chain logic, their existing thing that downloads the blockchain, has key generation, all that good stuff. Of course, it's fairly tightly integrated with Electrum, the wallet, right? It's written in Python. It's written to integrate with the existing system of the Electrum wallet. There's also Eclair, which is similar to C, similar to C Lightning in terms of it being targeted largely at server-side platforms, although they do have some forks of it, which they now run as Phoenix on mobile clients. Again, it's still a fairly monolithic thing that is targeted at specifically their deployment. And so the theme of all of this, you know, these are kind of the ways you go interact with the Lightning Network, and the theme of all of this is, well, they're programs you run and you interact with them. They're not things that you can use to integrate Lightning into your application, right? So if you want to actually build a new mobile wallet that supports Lightning, well, none of these are really going to do it for you. You can kind of build off of them. Like, you could take LND and just let LND do all of the work, including sync the chain and have on-chain wallet, all that good stuff. But it works the way it works, and there's not a lot of flexibility there. Or you could go the route that Electrum did, right, and spend multiple engineers, multiple years to build a custom from-scratch Lightning implementation. But we think neither of these are really good answers for someone who wants to build a Lightning, especially on mobile application, right? The future of getting good user experience in Lightning, and I think across Bitcoin, is enabling developers to build new and creative options for how you interact with these networks. There's not a lot today in terms of ability to do that, but as we add better tooling and make that an easier thing for developers to do, we can have a lot more experimentation. And because Lightning is this fairly early system today, we need that experimentation to grow it and to enable really slick user experiences. And so we think that's kind of where LDK comes in. We're not interested in competing with LND or C Lightning or Eclair or Electrum or whatever. They're really good at what they do, but we think they only do very specific things, right? So we're targeting, especially, like I was saying, existing mobile wallets, or new mobile wallets, but especially existing ones, right? If you are someone like, let's say, Blockstream Green Wallet, or whatever, you are an existing mobile Bitcoin wallet, you have on-chain support, you've already written all of this logic to sync the blockchain, to generate keys, to process transactions, and you've hooked that up to your UI and all this great stuff. How do you add Lightning? Well, if you use one of the existing solutions, insofar as they even work on mobile, they are going to download the chain again. So you're going to download the chain twice, and your phone's going to get really hot. Or they're going to also have their own on-chain wallet. So maybe you're going to create an extra on-chain transaction to move from the old wallet to the Lightning part of the on-chain wallet, and then you're going to open a channel, and that's a mess. So we think that's a really important avenue that needs to be solved by the Lightning community, is that there's not a good answer for these people. Of course, also, more interesting mobile experiences going forward is also something that doesn't have a great answer, right? So if you take LND or C Lightning or something like that, I'm going to keep picking on them. Maybe they have, I know C Lightning does, I think LND might soon have a generic SQL backend, right? So you can use any generic SQL database for your storage, SQLite or something if you want to do it locally. But let's say, and we've chatted with a few mobile wallets who want to do live synchronization of the Lightning state onto a server, encrypted obviously, so that you can just close your Lightning wallet and open it on a new device, and you can pick up where you left off, and you don't have to worry about it being out of sync or something. Or let's say you want to have live backup so that you always have the latest state on a server in the cloud somewhere, again encrypted of course, but so that you don't have to worry about losing your phone and, you can only get the non-HTLC encumbered parts of your balances, and some parts of your balances might be lost because you don't have the latest state and you need that to recover. These are things that you need a very flexible API in order to support. Finally, one of our last kind of target markets, which may be a little less interesting to this audience, although I don't know exactly, is kind of more custom enterprise backends, right? So if you're a cryptocurrency company, you're probably already kind of built around this concept of taking a node, running it in Docker or some VM service, and then interacting it with RPC, because that's how basically everything in cryptocurrency works. And especially if you're one of these various cryptocurrency exchanges that offers the shitcoin casino for everyone, you're certainly built around scaling up the number of random garbage coins you support, and then you're going to be built around this kind of architecture. And so LND and C Lightning fit super, super well into this architecture, and you should totally use those if this is the architecture you're set up around. But if you are a corporate who has more infrastructure on the back end, if you're someone like Google, you are not set up around that. You have all kinds of custom stacks for basically everything you can name that's running on the server is completely custom, and you want to actually integrate with this existing infrastructure that you have in a much tighter way. And so again, this is something where if you just take an existing Lightning product off the shelf and maybe you use a plugin to switch the SQL backend for it, that's still not going to get you where you want to be. It's usable, it might work well, but it's not quite the kind of tight integration you might want. So this might give you a rough idea of what LDK is. So LDK is a generic library that does all of the hard work for you in terms of implementing Lightning, all of the protocol state machine, all of the on-chain enforcement, so it knows how to create transactions. If your counterparty misbehaves, it can punish them and do all of the on-chain enforcement required for that. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't have an RPC interface. It's not designed to run as a daemon. It doesn't spawn its own threads. It just does what you tell it to do. It's just a shared library, callable in C, but we have interfaces in Java and Swift, and it's actually written in Rust. But so it is callable from any of these languages, but it's just a library that you would interact with like any other library in your native language. So as I mentioned, it's written in Rust. It's basically derived from the Rust Lightning project. it has all these language bindings, but we had to write from scratch our own language bindings generation logic. Turns out basically every language bindings generation logic out there is not designed around kind of a fully featured object-oriented interface. So we actually had to write our own and spent probably a full year doing that. But so now we have language bindings in various languages. We have can add more languages as users want. So if we have people who want to use certain languages, we can add those languages. Thank you. And we kind of have C and C++ support. So if people want that, we can fix that up as well. Because it is a very lightweight library, so it's designed to scale kind of as you want, right? So it works really great on mobile. If you want to run like a single thread and run everything in that thread, it does fine with that. Or if you want to run, it on a 20-core machine and spawn 20 threads, it's also designed to parallelize basically as much as you want it to. So it's really kind of scalable across that entire range. Just depends on exactly how you want to integrate it. You're going to get very different scalability properties there. But everything is an API, right? So it doesn't do its own interaction with the OS. So disk access, so storing all of that great Lightning state, is just an API. It doesn't actually call to the disk itself. It can. There's some options that you can kind of take off the shelf and run with that. But if you want to instead call to the network instead of ever writing to the local disk, you can totally do that, and we support that. Network access is just an API. So if you are an enterprise and you want to run the full Lightning state machine on a device that doesn't have an IP stack and just connects to the outside world and shuffles Lightning messages over, let's say, a RS-232 modem, right? You can totally do that. And that might protect you from some types of attacks if you're really worried about these kind of online keys and you want to not have a full TCP stack on the device with all these keys with money in it. Seems like a reasonable thing to do. And so we just have a generic pluggable interface for send bytes to the peer. And same for messages as well. So ChainSync is actually multiple different APIs you can use for providing chain data. So we support providing full blocks or only headers. We also support individual transaction connection that maps very well to the Electrum APIs. And so depending on what kind of API you either want to use or maybe already use for your blockchain sync, we already have an API that maps fairly well against anything you do for your blockchain sync. And you can feed that blockchain data into LDK, and then it will kind of do as required to keep the Lightning state machine updated from that block data, punish counterparties, make sure the right state is on chain, all that kind of stuff. And so then, the actual live state machine, which is fairly small, it's just the current state of all your channels, that is a separate module from historical enforcement, right? So if you're familiar with the Watchtower model, there's several different Watchtower models. But that's easy to implement because they're just different objects and you can serialize them and move them around to different servers and do kind of whatever you want. You have the live state machine, which is small enough, it's not quite going to fit in a hardware wallet, but it's trivially small enough to fit on even a super ancient Android phone or something. You can keep that runtime super tiny, and then actually do the on-chain enforcement somewhere else. Depending on how you set up the key storage, you can do that on the device or elsewhere. And then we support remote signing through the Lightning Signer project, which is one of the teams we've given a grant to. That's also going to form the backend for C-Lightning's new HSMD. So you can use the same code to sign for C-Lightning channels as for LDK channels and do offline actual Lightning state machine enforcement and potentially even run that in a hardware wallet. So hopefully there's at least one or two people who think maybe you want to build an app using this. So where are we? We have a number of mainnet nodes, so we're very happy with how it works today and its stability and its performance. We think it's fairly feature complete in terms of everything you might need to run a Lightning node in a number of different configurations. And the first two kind of downstream users or really downstream applications that are being built around LDK, we're hoping to get them in production by the end of the year, but we'll see whether they both make it that quickly, or whether they get delayed on other kind of decisions around how they want to integrate, how they want to build a user experience around Lightning, because now they don't have to kind of worry about all of the details of the Lightning state machine that LDK has kind of solved for them. We're currently funded through Square. We have 4 full-time engineers working on LDK, and we have several outside contributors, both who are building apps based on LDK for new Lightning nodes, and also there's another company who's working on building an LDK-based wallet, who's contributed several engineers to work on LDK as well. So external contributors are increasing, and we'd love more external contributors. If you want to learn Rust, or you want to learn Lightning, or you want to learn both at the same time, we're very friendly to new people who don't know Rust. All of us learned Rust on LDK, so we would love more contributors. It's a fairly, by code volume, it is significantly smaller than all of the other Lightning implementations. Not necessarily by feature volume, but once you cut out all that stuff like RPC interface, generic SQL backend, and all of these things, and you just replace it with a generic API, suddenly you have a lot less code by total code volume, and so it's a lot easier to kind of get into and start using, and it also makes it a little more maintainable in our view. We're also, we would love more people to develop using it. We're planning on, as much as we have time, being very high touch for anyone who wants to build an app around LDK. So far, we've been, we've had a lot of interest and a lot of people penciling it in for, 2 or 3 quarters from now. And so we've been working fairly closely with some of our initial customers in terms of helping them understand exactly how everything fits together and helping them build a good user experience around LDK. And so, if you want to build an app using LDK, you want to build a really slick Lightning user experience or something a little more unique than exists today, or you have some clever idea of how Lightning user experience should work, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to be really, hands-on and help you out in any way we can. So get in touch. And so, so where are we going from here? So we kind of just got to the point that we're happy feature completeness-wise. And so this has, of course, resulted in us getting a little behind on some of the new Lightning spec stuff, so things like Bolt 12 and offers and onion messages and all kinds of new channel types that are coming down the pipeline. So that's something that we're going to spend a bunch of time implementing, and also if anyone externally wants to really learn the guts of Lightning Protocol State Machine, again, we'd love more external contributors, and there's a lot of opportunity right now to really kind of dig into real guts of Lightning and implement low-level kind of next-generation features. And also, we're hiring. So Square Crypto itself has some headcount to, we're not sure whether it's going to be 100% of new headcount on LDK or maybe some other projects, but we are actually hiring for full-time roles, in addition to, of course, we have a very large grant program and love to fund whether it's any other Bitcoin project or also Bitcoin projects using LDK or BDK. We love to fund that too. So get in touch with, if you want a grant, grants@squarecrypto.org is always the right contact. And then you could probably email there too if you want a job, but probably the right person will see it. I don't know. But that's all I got. So thank you. And yeah.